when it's officially launched, we're launching it now. This is the Hungarian limited edition Chardonnay-based bubbly drink called Pezsgő in Hungarian. You must learn this word very quickly. And the reason why it's very special for me, because I made the gentleman's bottle 2,000 bottles. That's the minimum quantity that the bottling line can do in order to present it for you today, because I promised that today is Hungarian week. Otherwise, normally I could have presented it in this way, because this is how it looks in general, because this is a transfer method. Everywhere on the table there are small 10 cards. The 3 types of winemaking or sparkling winemaking is written there. The first one is tongue method, the cheap one, like in Prosecco, you put everything in, CO2, put it in the bottle, done. It can be very good, very bad. Several examples exist. Then you have the transfer method, which is basically a speed up version or a little bit of economical version of the very expensive champagne method, when they use only magnum bottles. So they do the second fermentation on these size bottles. The reason why I don't turn it over, because the yeast is still inside, and then it's going to be a little bit cloudy. Unfortunately, it came today, so it might be a little bit tricky to make it completely clear, but that is it. So what they do, they ferment, they do the second fermentation inside the bottle, and then they, with a small needle, they take out all the drinks under pressure, they take the yeast out, and then it goes directly into bottling. So out of 1, 2 of these will come up. They add a little bit of sugar. Inside of this one there is 15 grams. So it's basically a Hungarian market, a little bit enjoys the touch of sugar. And then basically they reuse these bottles. So it's a very expensive bottle, it's 25 euro the bottle on its own. If I drop it, in fact, if it explodes, because they use it several times. Because it have to be reliable up to 6.5 atmosphere of pressure. But this is what you need in order to create bubbles inside. And then the third method, if everyone knows, created or invented, so to say, in champagne, but there are several debates on that one, because actually in order to do a traditional method you need a very strong glass, and no one had that one except for the English. So most probably this method was not invented by the French, but the English, who had the bottle, and they put inside the bottle some wine which had some residual sugar inside. It started to do second fermentation, and if you had a very strong cork, basically the bubble stayed inside the bottle. And then this knowledge with the bottles went into France, and then you might know a gentleman who is called Dom Perignon, who basically was a winemaker. He didn't know anything about sparkling wine, but for the time, the French king, he really liked his wine. So he tried to do some experience with that wine that he heard about, with the special bottles, because in the past, obviously, the bottle was transferred on the road in kegs. 2 things can happen on the road. Obviously, the road was a little bit bubbly and could take several days, months, depending on where you go to Paris. And within this road, either the barrel damaged, so it leaked out and everything was on the floor, or it became vinegar, especially when you transfer the wine for the nobles in 30 degrees outside with cars. During the day it's very hot, during the night it's second fermentation, so it exploded, it was not drinkable. That's why they invented the bottle, because you just close it in, and normally it does not breaks as easily as a barrel. So when they invented this lovely method of let's keep the bubbles inside the bottle, this came as a normal size. Everything was hand blown, so the bottles was handmade, hand blown, and the reason why it could sort of keep the bottles inside, because it was strong enough to work against the pressure. Because the moment you close a fermenting juice inside a glass, obviously the pressure mounts. Every 17 grams of sugar will translate into 1% of alcohol and the same amount of CO2. So the more you add, the higher your pressure gonna be. And in this bottle, in this particular bottle, there's 6.5 atmosphere pressure, which is in general 3 times the atmospheric pressure what you have in your car. So when it bulks, I mean, when it explodes, it goes everywhere, and then you can go to the pub and ask for 5 beers how someone who chopped off his hands do it in generally. But what we're gonna do right now, this is a traditional disgorgement bottle. This is how they did it in the past as well. This is coming from Turley actually. This is from the end of 1800s. Not this particular model, but the system as it is from there. And what they do in general is this bottle is not closed with the usual cork inside. It has a beer top. This is the modern version of it. In the old time, there was always a cork. They used strings. Strings, I believe that's the name.
Strings or wires.
Strings or wires, but it is made out of not the metal one. Strings made out of whatever they could find. And that's the reason why in the old time they used the saber, because no one wanted to do the hassle of taking these strings out, because it also was put in wax, it was difficult to take out. So first of all it was difficult, secondly when you have a saber and there are ladies around, it's much more impressive. You just take the bottle, saber it off, and a lovely lady, you look what I can do for you. That's the original one, but there was a problem with that method because the yeast was still inside. So whatever you poured in the glass of the lovely lady, maybe the first or the second one was very nice and clear, but the end of the bottle was sort of disgusting. That's why in the old times they didn't use these fancy glasses. They used something which is made out of silver or made out of gold, because when you put the glass inside and it was flat, so you can screw it off from the top and the yeasty part just goes one forward. So what we like to achieve right now, if there is a volunteer, I would be more than happy to showcase it, how it works. It's quite heavy bottle.
Are we safe here? Or is it...
Yeah, if it explodes, not. But what you could do. So
But
what
it's
you could
champagne,
check,
darling, so it's
unfortunately,
okay.
I'm not 100% sure that all the yeast went down as it was shaken during the day. But let's try the best, because in general, when it is done properly, the yeast stays here, goes down. And in general, when you do it properly, or in the modern technology, you put the entire bottles up to this one into salty water, which is minus 21 degrees. So what it does is basically creates an ice capsule which closes in any kind of yeast which is inside the bottle, and the rest of the bottle is completely clear. So there's nothing inside. And then you need a tool in order to open it. So basically it's like a beer bottle, a beer opener, but it's a fancy one because it exactly fits into here. And then what you need to do, let's do a splash because it looks cool. Because if I do it over here, it comes back to me, but you need to have some angel share. So basically what you do is, you know, in Eastern there is a special tradition in Hungary. So what you do is basically using this one and you work against it. So normally this is how you open also a beer bottle. And what I look at, there is a small bubbly air coming upside. And when it reaches up to the neck of the bottle, that is when I release it. So, sorry to say.
Так, осечка.
No.
Давай, давай. Раз, два, три.
I told you it's gonna be explosive, yeah. So this is the industrial size. What you see is the modern technology. So there is a bit inside. There is no direct